burning a boat's not really common in Puget Sound. Neither are pirates. But the Pacific Northwest owes much of its living and most of its fun to the sea. So each year, the boat and the Buccaneers are part of the 10-day splash of the Seattle area, where there's water everywhere, and hardly a drop that isn't being sailed on, dived into, swum through, or otherwise festively splashed in every known form of aquatic sport all year round. Fronting upon the salt reaches of Puget Sound and backed up by the vast freshwater expanse of Lake Washington, Seattle has over 192 miles of waterfront in the city itself. It was a natural that her annual festival should be a carnival of the water, a Seafair. Here is the city which typifies the constant challenge of the sea, the city which conquered the waters for its livelihood and uses them for its pleasures. For in this Northwest country, almost everyone goes to sea, at least a little. With over 1,000 islands and thousands of miles of Puget Sound shoreline within easy reach by craft of any sort, Seattle is credited with having more pleasure boats per person than any other city in America. During the Seafair's festive 10 days in August, Lake Washington plays special host to its annual sailboat regatta and the world's flatty sailing championships. Indian canoes sped through these waters long before Captain Vancouver first dropped his sails in Puget Sound over 160 years ago. The waters of the whole Northwest were a way of life and a source of food to the many tribes that ranged this great inland sea. Then, as now, their swift canoes were hollowed from a single long, dead cedar log, smoothed and surfaced with timeless patience. Some even rigged for voyages to the open ocean, there to hunt down and harpoon the great whales. For over 80 years now, the tribes have gathered annually to test their strength and skill on the waters, to match their prize canoes and most skillful crews. Down from Coupeville, northward on the Sound from Seattle, sweep the war canoes still, the oldest tradition of the waters that once belonged to them. Duwamish and Puyallups, Skagits and Samish, Lummies and Tulalipes, the tribes of the great Northwest. Modern war canoes of the University of Washington have become respected the world over since the Huskies adopted crew racing in 1910. Under the persuasive megaphone of Coach Al Ulbrichtson, the Husky oarsmen sweep Lake Washington the year round, where their dynasty of leadership forms another inseparable part of Seattle's water heritage. A horde of rugged drivers have made the annual 100-mile outboard marathon a new classic in stamina and staying power. First run over 20 years ago, the marathons have been a proving place for engines, hulls, and fuels, from which have developed much of the safety and dependability of today's outboarding. 7 different classes now compete in the wake-bedeviled 100 miles of this big 2.5-hour marathon, during which Jumping Judy and Fireball, Iron Pants, and Little Stinker, and the rest, upend more than a dozen drivers for the Coast Guard to fish out. For downright thrill-a-second action, the annual Sammamish Slough Race is the best knockdown drag-em-out boat event of all time. Each succeeding year since its first running in 1929 has put a new premium on sheer, unadulterated nerve. 20 or 30 boats take over the sluggish little 13-mile stream known as the Sammamish Slough, which flows from Lake Sammamish to Lake Washington, and has about enough water in spots to accommodate a dozen minnows comfortably. It's the crookedest race in the world, and the most exciting. The chief hazards are half-submerged logs, or stacking one's boat on the beach, or cracking up on a bridge somewhere along the route, and they're pretty effective. Less than a third of the starters usually last the rugged chase. And when somebody gets tossed into the drink and is in peril of being run over by the flying outboards, the gang cuts throttle to fish him out before gunning back into the chase. Other branches of the outboard sport may make more speed on the wide-open lakes and rivers, but none of them give the beating that these slough jockeys undergo from the twisting and turning through the choppy waters in the wakes of rival boats, the cramped quarters from which to operate their plunging mounts, and the all-around soaked, bruising discomfort of trying to cling to a bucking boat, keep it at the top safe speed, avoid logs, banks, and bridges, and hang on for the full agonizing 13 miles. To the winner goes a mere trophy and a bruise for every wave along the route. Not far from the rigorous outboard dash, the crew of the Slow Motion 4 have spent weeks readying their pet for a new assault on her own world speed record set in 1950. Her 12-cylinder Allison aircraft engine gets a careful last-minute grooming by the crew of mechanics who have helped Slow Motion 4 win more triumphs than any other racing boat has ever won. With fuel tanks already filled, the final topping off with mobil oil gets the critical attention that lubrication for this high-speed engine demands. Crash helmets and life jackets are required items under American Powerboat Association rules. Today's attempt at setting a new world speed record finds Stanley Sayers, the owner of both Slow Motion 4 and Slow Motion 5, again at the wheel of the 4, with Elmer Linenschmidt riding as co-pilot mechanic. 2 years ago, Sayers drove the same boat at the nearly unbelievable speed of over 160 miles per hour. His 3-ton, 28-foot bolt of lightning is ready. The water is right, and from his home at Hunts Point on Lake Washington, they start for the measured mile. The Slow-Mo's engine develops over 2,000 horsepower at 3,900 RPM, turning a small two-bladed propeller at nearly 12,000 revolutions per minute through a Pacific Western step-up gearbox. With all that power, she'll run away from most private planes. While Slow-Mo warms up, official referee Mel Crook and timer Art Shorey check the intricate electronic timing devices, capable of accurate clocking down to thousandths of a second over a mile course that has been precisely surveyed and marked by buoys. The Roostertail is flying. Slow Motion 4. What a contrariwise name for such a roaring speedster. It ought to be named Comet or Rocket or goodness knows what, but Slow Motion. This short sprint of less than 20 seconds running time is being run at the fabulous rate of over 185 miles per hour, over 3 miles per minute. But it's not just one dash. It takes two to make a record. An average of the dashes in both directions must be taken to determine her speed. The electric eye timing devices clock her as she breaks out of the measured mile. Then back she comes for her northward run. The news headlines tell the story. A new record of better than 178 miles per hour, the fastest ever set by man on water. Biggest impact of the record run is felt on the Detroit River, home port of many of the Slow-Mo's rivals. For the Gold Cup race is coming up in Seattle, and Gold Cup fever is always high through all the boating centers of the East. Speed alone won't win on a closed course, and the furious warm-up trials and civic send-off for the contenders indicate Detroit's confidence she can bring the trophy back. Down in Los Angeles, owner-driver Moreland Weissel readies his Hurricane 4 and shoves off on the 1,300-mile jaunt up the coast to make his pitch for honors in the annual Gold Cup race. Most pleasure boat enthusiasts aren't concerned primarily with speed. Like most of us, they just want to enjoy the wide-open highway of the waters, cruise a little, maybe fish a little, drink in the fresh sea air and the beauty everywhere. But for many of them, there is one kind of race that brings them out throughout the summer, sometimes over a course extending as far as Juneau, Alaska. These are the predicted log competitions, where skippers must predict to minutes and seconds their arrival times at specified destinations while cruising at a fixed engine speed. The tides and the currents of the Sound are old companions to many a cruising powerboat man, but it's still a challenging task to figure the tide and the compass, speed and wind and drift together, and estimate the exact cruising time to some evergreen-clad point many miles away. From the moment King Neptune's royal yacht slides into the government locks at Ballard, August becomes a seagoing stew of racing boats and great good cheer. It's Seafair time, the Mardi Gras and the World Series wrapped up in a sailor suit. Even King Neptune discards his traditional undersea attire to come ashore and take command. And as he officially gives the word to the mayor that the Seafair is now underway, members of his royal court, including a few ex-rulers of the deep, are quick to present him with another royal symbol of the Northwest's dependence upon the seas, the magnificent King Salmon. Princesses and queens make up half the fun, or half the reason, for having a festival. And the overnight blooming of a 24-year-old secretary into Queen of the Seas is still evidence that America's most imitated heroine is Cinderella. This year's English-born Iris Adams will be Seattle's queen for the whole year. But the Seafair's a time for everything nautical. And there has to be a homegrown Davy Jones and Captain Kidd and his crew to challenge good King Neptune, capture his princesses, burn his barge, and generally keynote the carnival atmosphere that turns the staid waters and streets of the Seattle area into a pageant of uninhibited excitement and color. With real pomp, King Neptune's float leads off. For no festival, even a Seafair, could do without a parade. So down through the streets of Seattle, the bright ribbons unwind. Salmon's big business in the Northwest, and the big fish is the kingfish during Seafair. Every parade must have its clowns. And the old stories and stunts are ever new, perennially amazing through a child's eyes. But it's the great dragon Loom that captures Seattle, enticed forward by the whirling Chinese dancer that speeds before him. Loom, his great head rolling and body writhing, requires a team of 20 young men to keep him spirited. A relief crew keeps pace with the 102-foot dragon to spell off the weary men inside. Loom was created in Hong Kong to the special order of the Chinese community of Seattle. Over 200,000 spectators stand a quiet sea until the 75 float parade passes by. Race day's not too far off now, as the Detroit boats breach the Cascade Range through the Snoqualmie Pass and head for the modern Cup of Gold. Despite the competing thrills of mile-a-minute wave hopping and mile-long parades, the granddaddy of water sports puts on its show business garb and turns precision pin-ups and springboard experts into a 2.5-hour Broadway hit. Few racers ever top the 60-mile-an-hour clip with which Bruce Harlan hits the water from the high tower. Their precision figures draw the applause, but it's a marathon swimmer's stamina that helps the 27 aquadeers as the intricate routines go on without a breather. With sights like this new and indescribable pinwheel effect, even the half-mermaid, half-salmon population of the Northwest had to admit that the Aqua Follies champions, Katie Rawls, Earl Clark, and Bruce Harlan, could go the fish one better. Lake Sammamish, the last few earthbound miles for the Gold Cup hopefuls. Not everyone can own a Gold Cup speedboat or even a cruiser or an outboard job. But a pair of skis comes cheaply, and all that's needed is open water and a stray rope hooked to a speedboat to make human hydroplanes out of otherwise normal people. An old pair of shoes mounted so the feet can kick free, just in case there's a spill, and a pair of 5 or 6 foot tapered cedar blades take the championship Seafair skiers at 30 to 40 mile speeds past throngs that line Mount Baker Beach. The good ones can ski for hours without ever getting wet except from the flying spray. Once up to speed, it's possible to ski on just your own bare feet. but the variety of possible substitutes is amazing. There's even a water skier's flying saucer, complete with spinning. Other Seafair activities speed on as the technical crew readies Lake Washington for the Gold Cup. When the American Powerboat Association specifies a 3-mile course, the course measures 3 miles on the nose, and the 19 marker buoys are meticulously spotted. The Gold Cup competition annually brings to the home port of the previous year's winner the nation's leading hydroplanes. For this is the big one, the Kentucky Derby of the boating world. This year's running is the 45th for the old gold mug, technically known as the APBA's Challenge Trophy. Detroit wants its Gold Cup back, and its powerful Miss Pepsi is the #1 challenger, with such crust 4 as the dark horse. Others can join the fun, but the Gold Cup crews spend their week in the pits. But this is a race where the best mechanics win. These veterans know the Gold Cup's not just a race of boat against boat, but a rugged endurance contest where power plant and hulls strain under a grueling, racking pace that pushes metal and wood beyond every calculated limit. Just to finish the race is a mechanical wonder. There's tender, loving care for the slow-mo Force 12-cylinder engine. And her volunteer mechanics know the old lady goes a lot faster with a smooth skin. The day of the Gold Cup. The day Lake Washington's perfect racing water hosts 90 miles of furious speedboat competition. 3 heats of 10 laps each, 30 laps around the 3-mile course. The 2-mile log boom serves as a front-row anchorage for over 500 spectator-filled craft, many down from Canada and the far reaches of the Sound. Vantage points on the shoreline and floating bridge fill early, and before race time, the official barge gets the news that it's hosting 300,000 people, the largest crowd ever to witness a sporting event. They're all set to go today, and a properly balanced fuel and top lubricants are the best good wishes they can take aboard. The slow-motion Force fuel tanks drink just enough gasoline to last 1 heat. It's a surprise to many milling about the pits that no special concoction lubricates her high-powered engine against the fantastic demands to be made on her, but that a regular stock mobil oil has proven best to carry the load. Kept on land for inspection and fueling, the boats take to the air for launching. Smallest entry in the race with her 27-foot length, Los Angeles Hurricane 4 is reported to do 175 on the straight runs. When a hydroplane like Miss Great Lakes is up to speed, she's almost out of the water. Only the pontoon-like projections on either side of the bow and her propeller and rudder are actually immersed. 2 12-cylinder Allisons geared to a single shaft power the slim 36-foot Miss Pepsi and have driven her 10,500 pounds to a new qualifying record of over 103 miles per hour. Gold Cup chairman Jerry Bryant and referee Mel Crooks give Hurricane owner Moreland Weissel a few final words. The best drivers in the world are here today. Joe Taggart's got great hopes for Miss Great Lakes. And Wild Bill Cantrell hopes to repeat his 1949 Gold Cup triumph. Chuck Thompson will drive Miss Pepsi hard, though Fagel, Sayers, and Dollar hope the 2 slow-mos can push her to the breaking point. That smile of Mrs. Dollar will go to tears and back again many times. It's almost race time now. Even the press, used to the classics of every sport, tenses expectantly. Not much to say now, not much to do. A few last-minute precautions, and it's into the boats. A final word to the pit crews, and they're off for the warm-ups and the starting line. No time to worry now if such crust day-old engine is broken in. Miss Great Lakes, Slow-Mo 4, defending champ the Slow-Mo 5, and the Roaring Hurricane. Clearly visible a mile and a half away, the 10-foot pie face of the starting clock starts the last 60 seconds. Under the bridge, around the north turn buoys, the flying hydros roar toward the starting line. This is the big time. You can win the race at the start or lose it if you're a second early and have to run an extra lap. 12 seconds, it's going to be tight. 120 miles an hour, it's easy to guess wrong. The race is on. Slow-Mo 5 is over the line a nose ahead of Miss Pepsi and Miss Great Lakes. The pre-run dope that Lou Fagel and the 5 would do just that is panning out. Pepsi and the 5 are out to run each other off the water. And the first 5 laps find each of them averaging over 100 miles an hour. Pepsi gains on the sweeping turns. Slow-Mo 4 and Hurricane stay close behind. Slow-Mo 5 picks up on the straightaways, topping 150 miles an hour. Soon tab this tooth-and-nail battle as the greatest speedboat race in history. The lead's the thing with the big ones. It takes more speed to fight up through the wake of the leader and battle his Roostertail spray. Even at speeds over 100, steering these mahogany giants is much like handling a racing car. But here the big problem is staying with the boat. End swapping is the big hazard on the turns. Turning a circle at these speeds could be fatal. Only 4 boats left now as they swing into the rough north turn. Warning rockets leap as a roar and flash mark the exploding such crust. There's a tense moment as the speeding hydroplane swerves crazily, hurling Wild Bill Cantrell of flame into the water. 10 seconds and a Coast Guard rescuer grabs him. 4 minutes and he's ashore and safe. The Slow-Mo 5 and Miss Great Lakes, Such Crust and the Pepsi. They're all dead in the water now from the unrelenting pressure and pounding, the murderous pace of the wildest Gold Cup of them all. Just the Slow-Mo 4 and the Hurricane left. Miraculously fitted with the dead Slow-Mo 5's propeller between heats. After throwing her own in the first heat, the Slow Motion 4 is still the one to beat. Hard into the third heat, Hurricane 4 trails by a Roostertail, then comes whirling up for her challenge. Faster, faster. Dollar and Weissel wind them up like watch springs, and the Hurricane hits her peak lap of the heat. There's a crack heard clear across the course. The proud plume of the Roostertail is gone as the Hurricane's mightiest challenge twists and snaps her drive shaft. Hurricane 4, dead in the infield. The ruggedest race in history's been too much for 5 of the boats to take. When steel gears shatter and propellers shear, drive shafts twist and blocks crack, the wonder is that men can bear the strain that metals can't. There's no cheering yet. The atmosphere's grown tense. No one speaks, but the questions are there. Can the old lady do it? Can the Slow-Mo 4 last out the heat? Or did the Hurricane push her to the limit as the Slow-Mo 5 pushed Pepsi? She's round the last turn. She's got the checkered flag. She's done it again. She's a grand old lady, the Slow Motion 4. And her second Gold Cup is a victory well shared with her youthful driver, Stanley Dollar. And it's shared in true traditional form by a wet Mike Welch and his pit crew that did the impossible in the greatest test of drivers and mechanics, hulls, engines, fuels, and lubricants yet devised. 3 times in a row now has owner Sayers had a Gold Cup winner, but this is the big one. It's a big one, too, for all of us who go down to the seas and the lakes and the rivers and all kinds of boats. For the Roostertail and the wake of the family cruiser have a lot in common. The advances in hull and engine design, maybe the shape of a new propeller, the development and testing of fuels and lubricants that come out of races like the Gold Cup means more pleasure on the water for us all. It's a nice thought to have with us, cruising along.